Beauty arrive matter. Whatever.
Oh, single Sweden, please. Exclamation.
Okay, so just a reminder to everybody that at this point we are now live streaming on YouTube, so that the public will be able to watch this meeting should they wish, and then I will turn it over to one of you folks to take it away.
Oh, okay. So we're reconvening on the heels of the last standing committee meeting to sort of reassess the need and the plan for doing some type of a virtual AMC GAL training. The last training was done in the summer of 2018, and I believe there were a total of 50 attendees at that training. There hasn't been a significant demand or need, to my knowledge, about additional GALs needed by the court or to be added to the list, but we thought it would make sense to see if we have an opportunity for those that do want to take a training to schedule that in a virtual format sometime, hopefully maybe by spring or summer. So we were charged as the subcommittee with sort of reconnecting, looking at the old training agenda and seeing whether or not we could utilize the same speakers. We did have the evaluations from the last training that we can also take a look at to see if we want to tweak it in any way, but that's kind of the purpose of reconvening the training subcommittee. The last meeting that we had, given that we had done, I think, from the minutes that were sent around by Damon for July 2018, was just following the last training that we did. And we, I think those were sent around, so if people want to take a look at the minutes, I think we need to review and approve those.
Please, thank you, Sue. I appreciate that.
Of course. So if people have had a chance to review those, and anyone is interested in making a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll move.
Thank you, Justine. Any
Second.
Second by Liza. Any comments, questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay. All right, and I think that will take care of the first agenda item. And I did resend around, and this is old, I had to dig deep, that's why I apologize, I sent it somewhat last minute, but I thought it'd be helpful if we, because I couldn't quite remember exactly sort of the chronology of the agenda that we had for the last training, but I did send that around so we could take a look at it and see if we thought that the same presenters and the same topic areas would make sense to use again in the next training, hopefully in spring or summer. And again, doing it in a virtual format. I mean, we are still governed obviously by the practice books sections that talk about the amount of time. And I think, as I recall, this group gave a lot of thought and attention to making sure, right, that we had enough hours built into the training and that we covered all the topics that we thought would be useful. So I would just open it up to see what you guys think. I guess, you know, first of all, whether we'd want to use the same speakers and same topics, or what do people think about that?
So a few of these speakers are just not going to be available. First,
Yep.
I would say that as much as I love Dr. Seagroy, I don't think that the group thought she was terribly effective. And also, it might have been because of the timing that we scheduled her that we might need to move around some of like the order of things.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that she was terribly effective, and she was really talking mostly about interviewing children of abuse. And I don't think she was sort of general enough or focused on kids and family court. So I think we would have to probably get someone in place of her.
Yeah, I would.
And I
would
love
echo,
her. But.
Yeah, I would echo that. I had, when we first utilized her at that training, she had done a presentation some years ago, a training in connection with a DCF audience for the most part. Mm-hmm. And she was very good, but I agree with you. I think, you know, her presentation was more, like you said, geared towards interviewing child victims of sexual abuse
Right.
in part, and you know, and I think while useful for some purposes, I think most of the feedback sort of was this, what you just echoed, I think, from the group, and I kind of felt that way too. Do you
Yeah.
think so too, Liza?
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah.
The group loved her presentation. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So do we think, though, I mean, I guess certainly, you know, her topic was supposed to be, and was in part, I guess, communicating with children. So, I mean, obviously, I think that's a topic that we would still want to have included in the training.
Yes.
And so we would just have to sort of think about, and does anybody have any sort of ideas or suggestions? We can certainly think about it, but just that would be a gap, I think, that we'd need to fill.
So the name that comes to mind is Dr. Stephen Humphrey, or Humphreys, I think.
Yep. Yep.
He did a training for us a few years ago about interviewing children. It was really, it was just very effective, and he gives very specific, concrete techniques for talking with children. And at some point he says, so honestly, I don't really know why this works, but I've done it like 100 times now and it works every time. And I can't tell you why, but it does. And then David started using it and he's like, it's like you just pushed a switch, like an on.
Wow. Okay.
Start talking. And I was like, oh, okay.
Where is he from?
I think his office is in Hartford.
I think so. He is on. He is utilized by some of our child protection attorneys and other folks as in connection with juvenile court child protection proceedings, and does a lot of evaluations of children and families, which I think would be certain. There's a lot of overlap, obviously, between what he would be doing, you know, in connection with those assessments that he could draw on for their presentation. So do you if people feel comfortable with that, and I think I was Damon, I don't know any of this necessarily. We're not voting on any type of formal agenda or making any final decisions. It's more sort of next steps. So I don't think we have to vote on all of the action steps that we're talking about.
Oh, no. I think once, I think any recommendations that you folks have, my understanding would go back to the full committee, and then they would approve it. This is more of a work group, and I don't think, let's put it this way. It's not my interpretation that you need to vote to decide that there needs to be a replacement found for, for a piece of the agenda.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
Me too. Okay, so Justine, do you think, would you be comfortable reaching out to him to see if he would be willing to participate? I mean, we'd have to tell him, of course, like we've got to frame it out and sort of, the dates and all of that. But just in general, if he'd be willing to do it.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
I know he stepped away from family custody evaluations and is really focused more on the juvenile stuff. But so I haven't spoke with him in a few years, but I could reach out to him.
Okay.
Certainly. And basically, we're going to probably do this by some sort of Teams approach.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Would it be possible, and I'm just throwing this out there because he'll probably ask, if he could pre-record his training?
I obviously, I think we want to try to accommodate the presenters as much as we can. Mm-hmm. The only, and again, I guess, in terms of the number of attendees, I think we're not, I don't know, I say not, I may turn out to be wrong. I don't think, and we'll certainly confirm, I still have access to Frances, and I don't know if Danielle yet has gotten any inquiries, but, several years back, right, that we would have a long list of people. So it might be a relatively small group. So the only hesitation I might have is if he's willing to do it rather than pre-recorded, because he then would be available for questions. I think sometimes that's useful.
The biggest thing. There were a lot of questions in the last, last for various presenters. So to be able to have that back and forth.
Okay.
Conversation.
Yeah, and we will once we iron out sort of the topics and the amount of time for each topic. I think the amount of time for each of the topics seemed pretty good. We can kind of walk through it, but we would obviously work within his schedule. You know what I mean? When we put the pick the dates and pick where he pick where he would be on the agenda. So I think if he's willing to do it, maybe we can just accommodate him in that way. And then the way we had done it historically too, And I guess we'll have to, because I know Francis had coordinated sort of the registration and getting materials out to folks, if I recall correctly. So what we would do is, also he wouldn't be responsible for, once he, put together whatever materials he was going to use, if any, we would take care of making sure, however we need to, that it's made available to all the attendees. And we'll figure out sort of, later at probably a subsequent meeting, how we want to manage the registrations. Okay. And all of that. We, the last training, it didn't tend to be an issue. The ones prior to that, we had a cutoff and we had to put together a wait list, and it became a little bit more cumbersome. Right. That's the word I'd use. I don't know if Francis would call it that, but it was cumbersome managing it. But I don't think we're going to run into that this year in terms of, the number of attendees and getting materials out to folks and all that. So I think we'll be good with that. And then and also actually we can ask the presenters too. Like, I know if Dr. Humphrey say, we had this general topic of communicating with children, but maybe he might have some particular ideas. We can send to, we did this last time. We sent the presenters a skeletal framework of the full agenda so they can see what other people might potentially be speaking about. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that way he can look and say, hey, maybe, he'd have a different title for what his presentation would be, or different ideas about things that we might want to include. Right. But for now, I think that sounds good. We'll do that for the communicating with children. And we'll have to do also sort of, and I think most folks last time were fine with it, but that it's sort of a volunteer, I call it a professional development opportunity. I don't know if they might call it that, but we wouldn't have any resource. But I mean, we didn't run into an issue with that last time, so I don't think
we'll run into an issue with him. I will run it by him about how long he thinks his presentation will be. Okay. I don't know I don't recall if an hour and a half was too long and she didn't fill it, or if she went over. I can't remember. I know. I'm trying to remember thinking our estimation of the times was not terribly good.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's accurate. Also have to consider, like, we might, it makes it a little more hectic organizing. But we may need to break some of these topics out, because 2.5 hours on Zoom is very different.
Yes.
Than 2.5 hours.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
More speakers for, shorter clips of time.
Yeah, and maybe I think that's an excellent point. We have to think about the format, because I've said myself personally, I don't think any Zoom or Teams thing should be more than 2 hours. In a block. So The other thing we can think about, actually, that's a really good point too. We had done it in what do we do? I guess we did two full days or 2 half days. What do we do? Wait, no, two full. Yeah, we had the breaks and everything, right? So maybe we.
Oh no, I have ethics day 3 here.
Let's see.
Yeah, I think we did 2.5 days.
Oh, 2.5 days. That's right, Liza. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So actually,
you could be creative with this. Like,
this
could, it could be, 2 mornings a week.
Yeah.
2 hours. It could be 2. I mean, I'm certainly open to it. Because we heard, people, I got to take time off of work. I got to drive. They don't have to drive back and forth now, obviously. True. But, it could be 2 evenings a week for 3 weeks.
I like that.
That is the one thing about this. It allows us more flexibility with the time that we can hold them.
Yeah, right. It does. I like that. I like that a lot, because we could, even if, like you said, we split it, we do one presentation, over, we say whatever it is, like, because do you guys agree that really 2 hours is kind of I don't know, we'd want to go longer than that on a given day. And I think even if we did it in my personal thought about the timing would be, I think most lawyers and or other AMC or other GALs that might take the training would probably be available later afternoon. Like, say we did like a, 2:30 to 4:30 or something like that, as opposed to nights. I don't know. That would be my thought. But do you guys agree? Maybe that would make sense to just try to schedule it out so that we did just a 2-hour block. And we have to get 20 hours. Mm-hmm. So we could do
I
10.
feel like we might be able to get away with fewer hours of actual training if we were to assign homework.
Yep.
And then people could do that when they had free time.
Yeah.
And just sort of estimate how long we think that homework will take. And it could be, you know, a reading and then a worksheet. And not that they would hand it in, but that they would just certify or, you know, whatever, that they completed the homework for that week or for that segment of the training.
Yeah, because I think, didn't we do that last time too? We had a couple of things. So you're right. We could decide we don't need 20 hours of actual instruction. Maybe we could make that, you know, 15 hours or,
Right.
you know. So maybe once we identify the topics and the speakers, we could pull together sort of a draft outline that had it broken out with shorter presentations, or, you know, broken up over a certain number of days, and then leave maybe 5 hours. Maybe we make the agenda 15 hours of presentation time or something like that.
Right.
And 5 hours or less, we can figure that out. But I think that's a good point too. We don't have to have it all instruction. And I recall us doing that last time.
Yeah.
I
think it was.
I thought we had a document where we built in all the speaking topics and then the assigned readings. And I can't find it.
Yeah, my recollection was that there was reading that was to be done between day 1 and day 2, and then in between day 2 and day 3. That did take up some of the required 20 hours.
Yeah, the full agenda that I have is from that had, you know, it was broken out by day. The one I just emailed this morning was just the skeletal, but yeah. the full agenda actually had, so you know, we assigned readings on, let's see, day 14, but we did have a portion where we assigned readings at the end of each of the days. And you know, and I think we probably provided some guidance as to, you know, how much time, you know, they should spend doing the assignment.
Yeah.
And then we'll just make sure that we, you know, let them know what the time would be, so then we can make sure that we've got the 20 hours covered. So I think that makes sense. So maybe just we'll table the you know, the actual schedule, but it sounds like we're in agreement that it'll be best, in light of the virtual format, that we would spread it out over, you know, say we did a 2-hour presentation, maybe it's only 4 days, you know, or something like that, or even less, actually. You know, we can do 3, you know, we can, am I doing my math right? We can figure it out. Someone else with a bigger brain than mine can do the math.
A little more than
we did 5, yeah. Yeah, I guess it would have to be, originally I was thinking 10 days, whatever, we'll figure that out. And back in a few hours of assignments after each day.
We did a virtual conference in October, and the way I did it was to split it out. It was 1 day a week for 2 hours a day.
Yep.
And I had 200 each day.
Yeah.
So, you know, and we know we're limiting this to whatever, 50 or less. Yeah. You know, but even if it was 2 days a week for a month, and you know, and again, these are 2-hour blocks on 2 afternoons.
Yeah.
That, you know, that gets us to 16 hours of live training and 4 hours of reading.
Yeah, I think that'll work nicely. And I think most of the presenters probably now too have used either Teams or Zoom or something now. Right. And by then it'll be over a year's worth of experience.
We can't feel, you know, guilty about putting a requirement of time on it. This is, you know, you're receiving the necessary training by statute, you know, by the practice book to be a, you know, GAL. So you have to make this commitment to be there.
Yep. And the nice thing about the Zoom or Teams, however we do it, we remember the mechanics we had to go through, or Francis did really, to make sure that people were signing in, signing out, that they were staying. You know, we'll have the ability, and we'll maybe identify whether it be Danielle or whomever to kind of monitor. And we'll you know, we can flesh that out before the training in terms of the requirements and making sure that people stay online with us and all of that, so that we won't have to run the risk of people leaving the meeting in that way. So Okay, so I think that actually sounds like a good plan for the structure of it. The next topic area was Dr. Frazier's presentation, and that was what we had. What do we have? Oh, he did almost a full day. He did a
full day, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I thought, if I'm recalling correctly from the feedback, and I'd have to relook at the old evaluations that Francis had summarized. I think for the most part, there was positive feedback on what he covered, and sort of the format of his presentation. So I'd be comfortable, reaching out to him again to see if he'd be willing to do it. And he could do, did you guys think the timing, do you think that was too much?
I don't think because we had him at 2.5 hours. I mean, we're probably looking at limiting each day to 2 hours, right? But I also think 2 hours of one person talking at you might be problematic. So can we split the trauma and mental health and the addiction piece, and have Dr. Frazier do a piece, and then, do we have someone else who could do another piece? Just looking at the full agenda, he did adult mental health issues, children's mental health issues, addiction, custody evaluations, court-involved therapy.
Yeah.
Under.
Yeah, let me look at the longer one that we did for him.
Is there a way to split that? That topic certainly still needs 2 hours, right?
Right.
Way to split it.
Yeah. I certainly think that's reasonable. I'm looking at the larger agenda, right, that you had. So he did the family dynamics piece was a 2-hour block. And but then he did
a ton of stuff in there too.
Yeah.
Oh, I scroll up. I'm sorry. He did a lot.
Well,
yeah.
Well, you know what we could.
He did 4.5 hours in total.
Yeah, he did morning and afternoon. Yeah, he did 2 hours and then 2.5.
Yeah, he's a really dynamic speaker. I think he keeps people engaged, but it's going to be such a challenge through this vehicle rather than in person.
You know what we could do is we can ask him if like maybe he could tweak the presentation to make it more interactive. I don't know, like hypotheticals or something that would just in light of the format, or to your point, Liza, that'd be one option in breaking him into 2 separate days. You would do 2 days of 2 hours. And make it a little bit more, and maybe I don't know if he's had experience doing trainings in this new or presentations in this virtual way, but that'd be one option if he thinks he could break it to make it more interactive. Or we could, to your point, Liza, identify, maybe he could do an hour, like there would still be 2 2-hour sessions of the same topics, but in each day he'd do 1 hour. Is that what you're thinking? And then another person would do the second hour?
Yeah, I think one person for 2 hours
is a lot.
Yeah, it could, but look, if Justine's saying he's very dynamic, then it might not be an issue at all, so.
So he used to co-present with, I can't remember her name. Oh, I'm totally blanking on her name, but they used to co-present a lot together, and they ran a website called Child Custody Analytics that they created together. She was the president, one of the founding members of the AFCC. Susan, do you remember her?
Okay, I don't know.
Linda Smith. Linda Smith. Do you know
Linda Smith? I don't think so. Okay.
She testifies as an expert a lot.
Okay.
And she just testified in a trial that I was involved in.
Okay.
As a expert about parental alienation and gatekeeping and stuff like that, and its effect on children.
Okay.
So, but they used to co-present. So if you're gonna, are you gonna talk?
Yeah, I will actually. I'll reach out to him. That might work really well. Maybe they would collectively be able to do the 2 days with the same general topic areas, because I also think I don't want to expect folks to reinvent the wheel. If they've already done something for us not that long ago. They can update it or whatever, but I think that sounds great if he thinks that could work. And that would make the 2-hour blocks on both of the 2 days a little more manageable, I think, for the attendees,
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll do that, and I think overall the topics that were part of those two, both of those, the full 4 hours or 4.5 hours, I think it was, covering the family dynamics, the trauma, mental health, and addiction, and actually and the custody evaluations, all of that. I think I thought it covered what we needed it to cover, and what I can do is also just go back and refresh my recollection about the feedback, just to see if there was anything in there from folks that I would raise with him or with you guys about
Yeah.
you do more or less of something. But like I said, I remember overall it was positive.
Yeah, I think it was positive. I think if there was anything negative, it was more along the line of that was a lot of heavy stuff.
Yep.
In a block, like,
yeah,
we exhausted them.
I was going to say, in retrospect, it's sort of like, I wonder, putting all of his, although I think it was, we accommodated, which now we wouldn't have to worry too much about. He was only able to come on one day. So we
had to
put all of that meaty stuff into one day, but you're right. I think people left there completely drained, although they did come back for I think, didn't they, and stayed to be engaged. So that's good. All right, so I'll reach out to him on that. And then, so that covered I think the first full day of the training. Yeah. With those two that topic, and then the communicating with children. And then day 2, we had the domestic violence and the child development. And again, I think that the feedback on all of that was very good. So I don't know, Liza, do you think that the folks from CCADV or would still be amenable to doing it, or what do you?
Oh yeah, for sure. I was pulling up the evals that Francis.
Yeah, it was Jerry and Kelly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, CCADV definitely will do the DV portion. It will definitely be Kelly again. I'm not sure it'll be Jerry. We do have a new director of civil legal advocacy, Rhonda Mora, who will potentially do it. Well, I'll talk with them. We'll get the right people in.
Okay, that's perfect. All right, so we'll keep you on that. And I think that what they covered, I don't think they'd have to. I mean, I thought, and again, we can go back and just, between now and the next time we reconvene, we can look at the evals. But I recall that also being.
Yeah, I remember someone saying, I can't remember if it was Jerry or Kelly rushed, but
yeah, they were quick. And we were like, slow it down.
Yeah, I gotta. But it's one thing, Kelly is great at presenting and has no problem presenting, but she does go fast. And then I think Jerry was going fast because she was nervous presenting. So we'll get it. We'll get it right. So
I'm like the fastest talker ever. So when someone says someone's a fast presenter, I'm like, I thought they were talking slow. But yeah, I think, like you said, I think the content and everything else. So maybe that's more of just a presentation style. And you can say, and she's probably done, I'm guessing, done more of it too since then.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's great. And then for child development, we had Jody, and is Jody still with you? No, I didn't think so.
No.
Okay.
So she left a couple years ago.
I thought so.
She took a teaching position at UConn. And so she teaches this, like she's a PhD in this, and this is what she teaches about childhood development and milestones. Yeah. I suppose I could reach out to her and see if it's something she'd be interested in doing. She's got 3 little kids and a full-time teaching thing. So I honestly, I haven't spoken to her since she left. So,
do you want,
except for Facebook and stuff.
Oh, okay. Are you comfortable reaching out to her, or do you want me? I mean, we get that she might not be.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I consider her a friend. So
okay.
I'm happy to reach out to her. I'm just not,
sure she can do it.
I'm not I'm kind of pessimistic that she'll be available.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, no problem.
Okay. And then I can reach out, and again, I'll look back on the evaluations on Christine Rivera's portion of it. I thought I think having that perspective, since many of, some, I don't know, maybe many of these cases have some crossover with a DCF involvement, or there might be a DCF involved case. So I think having that perspective is probably helpful. But do you guys remember offhand if there was any major concern with that, or?
I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't remember if they met ahead of time and sort of coordinated what they were talking about, or if it was like one presentation then the other.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were actually together up there.
Yeah, I got the sense it was more sequential, do you know what I mean? As opposed to a shared presentation. But I can reach out. I'm going to look at, I'll look at the evaluations too again. And if Christine, or if not Christine, then I can reach out and get another person from there that I think might be good.
And where was she from? Susan?
Which one? Christine?
Christine, yeah.
Yeah, from the Training Academy at DCF.
Yeah.
Okay. Who does a lot of the training of the DCF workers on child development. I think ultimately, I think it's not called the Training Academy anymore. They renamed it some long name, Workforce Development. I don't know what it is, but I think if she's still there, I if not her, then somebody else we can get, and it'd be useful maybe because they'll get the same training that the frontline, social workers get there too. So I'll do that piece too, and then the cultural competence piece I thought was really, really well received, and got good feedback. And
I really enjoyed that too.
Me too. And I think the folks that have been doing that too, Damon, have been going around and doing that in a bunch of different venues. That particular training. I mean, I think we had actually we had the Chief Justice present at our annual meeting on this topic, which was phenomenal. But I know that team also, I think, did one of our child protection attorney trainings also. They came and did. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I know last year Sam Bruder was part of our unit and is also active in the advisory committee on cultural competency. So he was willing to make the overture. I'm happy to either get in touch with Sam, or I can get in touch with, I'm not sure if it was Shauna Wardard and Troy Brown that were the people who presented a couple years ago, but I can reach out to Sam, and he can, I think he'll be willing to put me in touch with whoever needs to be about seeing if they're willing to do the training again. They're usually very pleased to hear that folks are looking to have their training, and I know they put on a fantastic presentation when they do. So I'm happy to touch base with Sam and make the overture for that.
Oh, that'd be great, Damon. That'd be great. And I don't know if I have on here the amount of time on this. Let me look. Do you guys remember on the larger agenda?
I had it from 3 to 4:30.
Okay. Yeah, I do remember
it too.
Yep. Okay. And they probably have a set amount of time they typically do. So that actually would be good. That could be one of the days. Like, that could take up the whole.
That could be the 2 hours.
And actually, as I'm looking at the topic areas, for the most part, most of them were within that window. So that might work out nicely, that we could break it up potentially that way. Okay. All right, so that's good there. And then we had, Justine, your piece also got very good reviews on the courtroom practice.
What I recall about that, though, is that the lawyers were like, really? Can we skip this?
Yeah.
Well, that one, so I think you're right. Like it got good reviews, but the non-lawyer GALs thought needed more on the legal part of it, and the lawyer GALs needed more on the other aspects of it. So I wonder how we could, maybe there's a way. Here's a thought, since we can do breakout room, I think teams can do breakout rooms. Remember, we were going to do something like that in the physical, space that we had, if we were able to accommodate a different rooms for different disciplines. But maybe what we could do, because I recall that too, you're right. We could potentially break it out to say for that, was it a 2 hour? Yeah, so we did.
It was 2.
Yeah. So maybe what we could do, we'd have to clone you, Justine, or get someone else to do, but maybe we could have a breakout room for the lawyers that was a little bit, designed in a different way. And then a separate breakout room, same time slot for the non-attorney GALs. What do you guys think about that idea?
I think it's a great idea because the breakout room for the lawyers can sort of be like a discussion regarding the changes to the process in family court. Family court is going crazy right now.
Oh, yeah.
I have like 20 cases myself. All of my lawyers have a ton of cases, but we're getting scheduled with hearings on top of each other. And there are these new things called case dates. And there's a few other new things that have been implemented. And I think the goal is to increase the efficiency and make sure the cases are moving and not getting lost in this COVID pause.
Right.
But there's no pause anymore. Things are happening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And they're evolving daily. I mean, I know that the family court in some, down in the 4D arena with support enforcement and establishments and things like that, they're doing a block schedule, and they started with doing the calendaring like you're talking about, where it's a 30-minute block, but sometimes the block for your case is shorter or longer, and it gets all, and then they looked at doing block docketing, where it's almost like a virtual courtroom. Everybody logs in at the same time, and then your case gets called. So I think that's excellent, because I'm sure I can equate it with what's happening in child protection world and delinquency defense, where it's just sort of that whole, the COVID overlay and the virtual nature of proceedings could actually be like, and there's a lot that's been raised about sort of, and maybe not so much, I think it would apply in family court, but just sort of the, I guess it doesn't matter for the attorney GALs, but I'm thinking about, we've had to raise a lot of constitutional issues and challenges to some of these virtual, in juvenile court, they're terminating parental rights virtually, like with, a parent calling in on a flip phone, things like that. So I think in certain instances, the lawyer GALs would probably welcome a conversation about that.
And so I'm part of a group on Facebook that's the family lawyers, and someone will pose a question like, I just got scheduled and for some reason, case date is the only thing that's coming to my mind. But can anybody tell me what this is? And have you had one yet? And what are we supposed to do? What do we need to have prepared for it? All of that. And so to have that opportunity for the lawyers to have a more in-depth conversation about those things, and then have either the new lawyers and the mental health people get sort of the basic, here's how you open a file. And I'd have to change a lot of it. All the family relations stuff, the short calendar process. I don't think we're ever going back to short calendar.
Yeah, right.
Damon, are we ever going back to short calendar?
God, I doubt it. I really.
I hope not.
Yeah.
I certainly hope not. That's not the plan.
Yeah. I think there's certain proceedings that absolutely could continue to be done in a very efficient way that would be also, helpful to the parties to be able to do virtually, and then that would leave more court time to do things that I think should not be done virtually over the, if someone's objecting to doing it virtually, like TPR trials and things like that. So, so I think that's great. Like, do you have a suggestion of who might be able to do the other breakout room, or who?
I'll think about that. It'll probably be somebody. I feel like it should be two people. One, a practicing attorney in the family law arena. It's not necessarily focused on GALs, right? It's just how the family court is working now. And maybe someone from the branch from family relations or something, who can say, here's, because some of the things we have to make sure we read the notice all the way down, because at the very bottom of the notice, it's, by the way, you have a meeting with family relations at this time before your actual hearing, call this number. And if you didn't read all the way down, you just think, oh, that's a Teams invite, I know what it's all about, and you forget about it. And then you get a little notice saying, do you know you're supposed to be on a call with family right now? And you're like, oh, shoot. And so.
So do you think, Justine, then you're talking about having two people in each of the breakout rooms, or just one in each? Okay. Yeah.
Just one, because that's more of a discussion room. And it can be, they can have discussions and talk with each other, and the court person and the seasoned family lawyer who's done a lot of these can sort of moderate, but maybe answer questions too.
Okay.
That's
But
my
like
thought.
if we did the breakout, if we did that your portion or that portion courtroom practice, if that, if we're going to call it that, if we had 2 breakout rooms at the same time, so we were going to set it for a 2-hour block, you would be in one and another person would be in the other one leading it?
I feel like I would do like the basic teaching, because I'm not in court as enough to really know how all those different processes are happening now.
Right. So you're thinking then maybe we wouldn't necessarily. Do you mean you and whoever else it would be, just say from judicial, would do the like an initial portion of it, and then?
I thought they'd be done at the same time. I would just do the basic process myself, and then the other lawyer and court person would do the piece for the
okay, so you would be by yourself, and then be 2 other people in the other one, is what you're talking about.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
It could be, though, kind of based on what you're saying, Justine, that even a seasoned attorney who's coming into the GAL role might actually need the courtroom practice training because of the way family court has changed.
Yeah, because I'm thinking to myself as I'm saying this, man,
Yeah.
I'd like to sit in and watch the other one and learn something from. I don't think I'm the person to present on the courtroom stuff anymore.
We had courtroom practice at 2 hours, and then we had the role of AMC GAL at 2 hours. So if we look just at the courtroom practice, maybe that is split into 2 1-hour presentations, and for one of those hours, existing attorneys go into a different room for more discussion. Maybe the first hour is like a clear breakdown of the new family court process. And then the second hour and that's for everyone. And then the second hour is a breakout with a little more detail for anything that kind of is still remaining for new attorneys or for the mental health professionals, while the existing or long-term attorneys go in for a more kind of theoretical, bounce ideas off each other type of content.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but I'm not the person to do that first hour.
Yeah.
Right.
We're gonna make Joe,
and whoever is the person today,
Joe DeTuno to do that.
Yeah.
And then we need Joe DeTuno to also do what he did last time, around the role of the AMC GAL. And I do think I was just kind of going back and reading through a lot of the evaluations. We shaped that schedule 2 years ago. We had 2.5 live days. We needed people coming from all different places. So we shaped that schedule around our presenter schedule.
Yeah.
But in no uncertain terms, reading through these evals, we need to have the role of the AMC GAL be the.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree, because that came up whether we do it virtually or in person, that people kind of were a little, especially new, because that's the other challenge with the training, is that we do have people who may have experience in family court as a lawyer for a party, but not necessarily. So, but some who were straight up brand new to the whole thing, and so to start, they didn't really understand. So I think that's really an excellent point.
It is.
If we can move it around, and we don't have to accommodate as much anymore.
Yeah, it didn't come clear to them why they were learning what they were learning till the last day, and then they were like, "Oh, now
that makes sense." Yeah. Right. Okay. So, all right. So for that one, then, if I make sure I understand it right, what we're saying is we would do, at least for the first 2-hour block, the first hour would be just the overview that we would probably need maybe Joe to do, which is sort of the new, post-COVID procedures. We don't have to call it that, but the sort of new virtual hearing procedures, sort of that type of piece that would be for everybody. And then you're thinking the second hour is where we would break out? Yeah. Okay. And then
a little more detail about the court process for the new attorneys or mental health professionals. And then a bit more theoretical kind of, bounce ideas off each other for the more longer term attorneys.
Gotcha. Okay.
So one is more of a lecture, which I probably could do that, just the court process, how to make, how the trials work and all of that.
Yeah.
And then someone else would moderate a discussion group in that other room.
Yeah.
Okay. So Damon, would you be, or I don't know, I'm just throwing out there, whoever, I don't know who had lined up Joe last time.
So I'm not sure, and I was trying to think of the same thing. I don't know if it was Judge Bizzuto who did that, or if I wasn't sure if it was one of you had done it. If it was Judge Bizzuto, I would just suggest talking to Judge Albus and running it through him. That's all.
Okay. So I'm comfortable doing that. Or when we're gonna have our meeting, we can bring it up with him in the meeting, because one of the agenda items on the fuller committee meeting will be to go over. We'll give an update. Yep. And so we'll just ask him at the meeting. That's a good idea. And see if he has other, I know he wasn't able to be here today, but we'll obviously frame this summary in the way of just sort of, these were our ideas, and get his input on whether he thinks we're on the right track. Would he have other suggestions or, concerns or ideas? So we can have him do that piece. But so if that would be only my little pea brain again, I apologize. I haven't had coffee today, so I'm going to blame it on that. So that covers 2 hours of that topic, and then do we have another 2-hour block that we'd have to cover?
Well, I think the role of the
role of
GAL and AMC, but it won't be in that order, of course. And that
I
can
see
be
what you're
me
saying.
or
I see.
someone. Yeah, that could be me or someone from my office.
I gotcha. Okay.
Maybe Margaret Bozak, or maybe I'll team with someone. Okay. We have Brendan Holt in our office now, and he's, I think, is a good presenter.
Okay.
So.
And that would be another 2-hour block. And do you think on that one we would move that up sooner?
Yeah, that should be day one.
Day one.
Yeah, day one. Yeah, day one.
Yeah.
So, and maybe even like you said, the first.
Oh, on that for two years ago. Did Joe do that?
Liza?
We had Joe on that, doing that with you 2 years ago. Did he ultimately do that piece with you?
Joe DeTuno did role of the GAL and AMC with me.
He did the court practice.
On my full agenda for 2 years ago, I have the Children's Law Center as doing courtroom practice, and then we had Children's Law Center and Joe DeTuno doing the role of the GAL AMC.
Okay, I just had it flipped.
I don't recall that being that way.
Oh, okay. That's that.
Yeah, Joe was. I think the courtroom practice was Joe and Justine, and then role of AMC GL was just Justine. So that was the only difference, I think. So Justine, then you're comfortable with we move that to day one, the first one. Maybe we do that right out of the gate. I think that's such a good idea, because I think that was part of the.
Kind of sets the stage.
Yep. And then, and like you said, you can tweak that to the extent that you need to, and that one maybe we say, and that one is going to be general. We say at the beginning of the training, even last 2 years ago, which was that we have a broad range of experience, sort of in the room in family court proceedings generally. So some of this, it's hard to kind of come up with a middle ground, but I still think it's not bad as a refresher to people that maybe even who have been involved as, not necessarily as a GAL, but as an attorney for one of the parties.
Yeah.
So that'll work. Okay. Perfect. So that took care of I think the full second day.
So I mean, I think that it's good to have this sort of outline, but I think we might need to rethink the amount of time for each presentation, and maybe they don't need to be the 2 hours that we were trying to fill, especially if we're going to give more homework.
Yeah.
Well, I'm interested. The one other I gotta look at your email again, Susan.
I have to remember if I actually spoke for 2 hours or if that was one that we overestimated.
The last thing. So I guess the last thing we have in your email, the kind of rough outline, Susan, was view from the bench and then ethics. Are the block topics we have to cover. So I'm kind of curious. Once we now have everything we've just talked about, how many 2-hour blocks did we end up with?
Yep. Yeah.
So, are we doing view from the bench again? And is that something that can get mixed in, Justine, with that first day? Like, if you think you don't need 2 hours to do role of the GAL, do you need like an hour and a half and then we have Judge Elvis or whoever maybe comes in to do a half hour on view from the bench.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then we still have to do the 2 hours on ethics.
Yeah.
So we have to do 2 hours on ethics, right?
Well, what was interesting is we did it as 2 hours. We raised this last time, but 3 hours would be too long. It's weird to me that, if I recall right, I'd have to look, but I remember there being a discrepancy between what's needed as for part of the annual training, the MCLEs, versus what's required in the practice book for GAL. I for some reason, I remember reading in the practice book, and I will look at it, that it said 3 hours of ethics training for GALs, which didn't make tons of sense to me, because it was in conflict with, not that it's not good to have additional ethics training, but I think, I thought maybe it should have been consistent, but we can table the amount of time, and I do think 3 hours of that all in one sitting would be not tolerable.
Yeah.
I mean, so maybe we could, if we do think we want to bump up an hour just to make it consistent with the practice book, we could add a 1 hour ethics component to maybe one of the other days.
Okay.
But we can look at that, but we definitely had it only as 2 hours the first time.
Right.
Yeah,
They went short. They were they
Yeah.
finished really early, and then they were kind of like up there thinking, oh, we should have planned better.
Yeah.
I had created I don't know, 7 or 8 scenarios for them to comment on, and thought that would take a good hour of discussion, and they just went through them one after the other, and I was like, all right, guys.
All right.
And we ended early that day,
Yeah, you're right, actually. Well, do we think, I thought, and I have to go back. Do you think the feedback from the group? I thought they did a decent job with the training.
I don't remember the feedback. I know both these guys.
Yeah, they've done your trainings before.
Yeah, and so Jeff Mickelson is basically retired. I don't think we would get him.
Okay.
Bob Madden, I don't know if we'll get him. I'll ask him.
Okay.
He still volunteer mediates for us. He's off our board now just because of term limits.
Okay.
But he's still teaching, and his private practice has really expanded. So
Okay.
He's a little harder to schedule even for just the mediations, which makes me think just not something I can take on right now.
Yeah.
But I'll ask him and let
Okay.
me know.
Okay. So maybe if it makes sense, maybe what I'll do is, and maybe Danielle can help me with it, is we'll just, flesh out based on our conversation today, come up with sort of just a framework, which would have the trainings we kind of talked about, all still draft, obviously, because we have to reach out to everybody and sort of see if they're receptive to doing it. And we'll put it in 2 hour blocks, spread it out over, and then we know what we may end up, like you guys said, tweaking the time frames.
Yeah.
Building in maybe some more homework, but at least something so that we can look at that for the next meeting and use that. I don't know if when's the meeting is next week. Oh no, it's the week after that. So we can have that available just for purposes of presenting to the larger committee what we were thinking. And really on that day, it'll just be more of an update about where we stand with it. And do we think in terms of the timing, with everything going on, I'm thinking summer. We've always done these in the summer. Do you think that makes sense, or do you think we would do it sooner? Time flies so fast. It's going to be
going by. Yeah, summer.
I think I'm good with summer.
As early as we can pull it off.
Okay. Well, the other thing is, I think you're right about that. Plus, we'd have to put the notice out, give people time to, not apply, but register, so we can, and then so let's, as we reach out to the potential speakers, we'll let them know we're thinking sometime June. I think for some reason, oh, you know what? We tried to do it with the judges training last year or in 2018.
Right. That's right.
That's why we picked those days. Which actually, you know what? Given that the courts are ramping back up and the hearings are being, maybe if I have no idea if the Judges Institute will be, on virtually in some fashion in a similar way this year, but
put it on for a question to ask Judge Elvis.
Yeah, we'll ask Judge Elvis about it. Yeah.
We can figure that part out.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you that things are getting scheduled David has 2 hearings back to back today, and then another lawyer in our office had to cover his 3rd hearing because it was at the same time as those
Yeah.
others, and he couldn't get a continuance, and they're all in the same court.
Yeah.
Like he just has to be
Wow.
on Microsoft,
Yep.
2 different,
Yeah.
and it's like we say, oh, I already have a conflict, I have another thing, and the continuances are being denied. So they're really insistent on getting things done, and I understand why.
Yeah.
Because there was such a pause, but and there very little notice and with very little coordination with lawyer schedules. So I just get something and says, this is your next hearing. And if I'm not available,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
in trouble because
Yeah.
they won't let me get a continuance. So
Okay.
it's going to be hard to insist
Right,
that people be available because they never know when they're
They don't know. It changes from day to day. Well,
Yeah.
and again, like I said, we'll also look to see, and I'll touch base with Frances to see also, even before she had left, and whether we've had any recent calls about getting on the list. So we'll have an idea of the numbers. It may end up being, I think you had some folks potentially that would want to be doing it too, Justine. Is that still?
So, well, not anymore. We were
Okay.
going to hire Elizabeth, and she had left the 3rd day short, and you and I spoke about
Oh,
that.
that's right. That's right.
She decided it wasn't a good position for her, so we hired Brendan. And Brendan actually had fallen off the list at not having, and so he'll be on the agenda for a couple of weeks. So
Okay.
he's a staff attorney here, but with supervision until he's back on the list.
Gotcha.
Which I hope happens, but I shouldn't
Yeah.
assume. And so I don't think we have any positions to fill right now that people are waiting. And we didn't actually advertise that position because we had Liz and then Brendan.
Right. Oh, okay. So
So
yeah,
we
so we'll see. I think it's, if we can get the folks, I mean, that's the other thing, I guess, if we end up having only like, it's so weird. I just don't know in this day and age whether, I don't know how often the courts are doing appointments for GALs right now currently. I mean, what's your experience been, Justine?
So
You're busy.
Absolutely, yeah. And
And
we're
getting new
absolutely
cases.
meeting our contract with the exception of those few months
Yeah.
when everything first shut down.
Yeah.
Our monthly, what I consider
On track
our
with that.
quota absolutely on track.
Okay, so we may get, so who knows, once we post it, maybe we'll get enough people. My question was more along the lines, if we get like, 4 people, I hate to ask these folks to volunteer their time, even though it's in a virtual way and a little less, problematic with travel and everything else, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We'll frame it out, we'll do the posting. So any other issues or questions you guys want to bring up right now about it? And if not, then what we'll do is we'll each reach out to the folks that we identified. We'll frame this out consistent with our conversation, get it back out before the larger meeting, and then we can kind of go from there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So do we want to, maybe this is for the larger group to discuss, but do we want to record so that if there is someone that then wants to do the training but wasn't available, they could possibly do the recordings? Or do we not, is that too much independence for them?
That's a really good question. I think in some ways it would make, because we do get people that like they just missed the training, and especially since if we're only going to do it every 2 years, or it's going to depend on the demand, but or even if it was an annual training, but some people just miss it, or they're not, or they are new lawyers, so we'd have to. I think it's a good idea to bring up with a larger group, but it might be something if we decide to record it, we would just have to somehow track that they logged in. I mean, you can't track that people aren't multitasking, but we could at least track that they've logged in and logged out of the, something like that. Yeah. I'm sure there's some technological way to do it. I'm like the least tech savvy person there is, but I'm sure there's a way to do it.
There is, because I know that my staff, everyone here had to do the sexual harassment training through CHRO.
Yes.
And you couldn't log on. They would know if you didn't.
Well, that's a good point. And you had to
keep it open the whole time.
And that asked questions at the end of each segment. Now, we all had to, do it too. I mean, they weren't the most difficult questions to answer, but it was a good format, to ask a couple questions.
Actually,
actually paying attention.
You know what? I like that actually. Maybe what we could do is if we do decide to record it, then what we would do is just put it somehow, if there's a way to do it, like you said, like they did with that, at the end of the training, just say that, there's a survey or questions.
Yeah, and it was like 3 questions.
They did it. They did it at the end of each segment.
Yeah, no, I remember that. And we could either build it in that way, so that each section they have to. I don't know how to do that on a video, like if it was odd, but we could figure that out.
Someone knows how to do it.
Someone knows how to.
HRO did
Probably
it.
that's probably some additional technology, because that training was clearly put on a platform that allowed the questions to be there to advance to the next.
As opposed to just a
but
video.
it's doable.
It's doable.
Yes,
Doable.
it's absolutely
Other brands
doable.
has money to do it though.
Yes. But
And then we could, when somebody calls OCPD and says, "I really need to do
Right.
the training," then you can say, "I'll send you the link."
yeah.
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 How great would that be, you guys?
It would be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly, if we have the ability to do it that way, I think it would make a lot of sense.
So
And we
my
just-
friend Kim was one of the presenters, but I'm sure she has no idea how the back room did all the technology. But I mean, it was a state agency that put it on, so someone with the state knows how to do these things.
Yeah. There's certainly nothing in the practice book that would preclude that. You know what I mean? So like, that's the bottom line. I think for the larger group, I think if it's going to help facilitate getting people the training and getting people added to the list, based on the demand, and we can do it without having to redoing this every year or two, it would save I think it'd be very efficient, at the end of the day. And then we could put together, we could tweak it, and if next time we do a virtual training live, we could just record it, but at least we could use a couple years worth of the recorded training.
Yeah, and it would resolve my issue, which never gets resolved by that training, because I never am hiring someone at the right time.
Oh yeah, it's never the right time. Yeah. And you do have, if you think about it, like new lawyers that are coming on board that might want to do it, that may not necessarily be ready with their you know what I'm saying, based on when the bar exams are and things like that. So
would it be presumptuous to, like, Damon, do you think someone from the branch could reach out to CHRO prior to our meeting on the 21st to try to understand, what the process was for how CHRO created that training, and if it would even be feasible,
Yeah, I mean, we can talk to Judge Albus. There may very well be people internally who can, I don't know that there are, but there may be internally that can help us with that as well. So it's just as I said, just something we would run by Judge Albus before we went to talk to anybody about it.
yeah. Okay. So we'll raise
the more
I think it's a great idea.
The more information we have for that meeting, the better. Because it might be a hard no. It might be, CHRO laid out 10 grand for that. Or,
Yeah.
And we don't have any idea how that happened.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the only thing we'd have to police. Well, I think we should still record it so that we have it.
Yeah.
And then we can just determine if people sign up and, they ask about it later. If we can't do something that specific with the questions to advance and things like that, we would just, maybe even here, I could check with our IT people if there's any way to just sort of verify that someone's logged in and logged off and they've actually been online the 20 hour, whatever, or 15, whatever it is for the actual, you could, people could turn it on and go do their laundry for all we know. But I mean, there's probably some way to address it and make sure that people are doing it. So, but I think that this might create some nice opportunities, I think, and options.
I think so too.
So we'll put that
good.
up.
I'm glad you're not opposed to it.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. I think it's an excellent idea. And we've been doing it for other trainings too, where people, like, we schedule them, and like you said, for a lot of reasons, people not available on the time. You try your best to coordinate with everybody's calendars, but it's impossible really these days. So we've been doing that, recording it, and then potentially making them available for people who weren't able to be there. So all right. Well, if there's nothing else, I think we've got our next steps. I'll make sure you guys get the agenda, and I'll send it around as a draft if I miss something, which is distinctly possible. In terms of what we talked about, we can revise it before the meeting on the 21st.
Okay.
So, okay.
Good.
Excellent. All right, so I guess, do we need a motion to adjourn or not, Damon? I don't know.
Yeah, I think.
Okay,
I'll move. Let's adjourn.
okay. She's ready to adjourn. Second. Okay, I'm sure everybody's in favor. Opposed? I don't hear any. Okay, it was nice to see you guys.
Nice
You
to see
too.
you guys.
Okay,
too.
happy New Year. Jamin,
Sue-
Jamin, yes, I'm sorry.
Sue, my thanks to you for running the meeting. It's very
Oh,
much
sure, not a
appreciated.
problem.
So,
No, I appreciate
Um,
your meeting.
and then Allison, at this point, we're adjourned. So the line.